everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Nicole and I'm a part-time reseller on Poshmark, and today I'm going to talk about some best practices that you should be doing on Poshmark to have the best success in 2024. These are things that continually show success on the platform and continually really bring in those sales for me, and they have consistently brought in sales over 2023. So I think these are things that are going to really help you have success on the platform. So if that is something that is interesting to you, definitely keep watching and make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss a future video that I do here on this channel. So the first thing that is going to be a huge best practice that you should follow is making sure that you provide measurements. These are so important for so many reasons, and I also swear by putting measurements in the pictures using a tape measure and flat laying them, and I'll tell you why. So this is so important to do because there's no way that the measurement could be misconstrued. There's no way it can, be confused on what you're trying to say that was a measurement. And a good example of this is a couple months back, I had someone that told me that, well, I had put the measurement in the listing saying that the length of the pant was, a certain amount. And they thought that I meant that the inseam was a certain amount because to them, the length is the inseam. Now, to me, those are completely different things. But to them, they were confused. So then they tried to open a case and say, well, I provided the wrong measurement. So there could be no way that they can, be confused, because if you put it in the picture, it shows right off the bat what you were talking about. This is the length, this is the width or whatever. So there's no way that they can misconstrue it and take it in a different direction. And especially when they do try and open a case, you will be protected by your photos, and you could just share your photo and say, I was very clear in the pictures what the measurements were. So measurements are so important too, because you don't want somebody to have to ask you what the measurements are. I've actually purchased many of things on Poshmark myself, and a lot of times I'll come across things that don't have measurements, and I don't want to purchase without measurements because I don't know if it's going to fit and I can't return it. So I would love to know if they're, I would love to know the measurements of things. And so if I come across a listing that doesn't have measurements, I don't want to ask. I'm going to move on to go to the next listing, because maybe that person's not going to respond to me, and maybe I'm never going to get the answer. So just make sure that you provide measurements. Don't take the lazy approach and say, oh, I'll provide them if they ask. Don't ignore people that put comments. I actually was talking to someone the other day that said they were wondering why they weren't selling a lot of items on Poshmark, and then they were telling me right after that, they proceeded to say that whenever somebody asks for measurements, they just don't answer. To me, that seems like you don't want to sell things. That just seems like you're really lazy and you're not really looking to sell your items. So provide those measurements and make sure it's very clear what those measurements are, so there's no way that there can be confusion. The next thing that's going to be a huge best practice in 2024, again, is to be organized. Whether that be with your organization for your items or your inventory or your closet in general, be organized. It's going to help you in the long run, and it's going to help you just be more consistent and not, lose items or anything like that. And it's going to save you time too, because you're not going to have to go digging and searching for an item. So for me, a lot of people ask how I organize things. I actually organize things by color, category, and size in my personal closet, and I actually have some displays in my room where I have like my shoes and my in-season pieces as well. So just organize however you think is best, whether that be in bins or whether that be on hangers, however you think is going to be best suited for your location and what space you have. But make sure that you are organized. So many people have a lot of listings and then they start losing them and they start not realizing, where things are. And that is where you just start wasting a lot of time, and it can get a little crazy. So another big one is to make sure that you are listing things that you are allowed to be listing. Make sure you're not using, copyrighted stock photos. And I actually see a lot of people that, will post, oh, my listings got removed, all my closet listings were removed, I don't know what to do, why would my listing get removed? And there are so many different reasons why this could happen, but a lot of the times it could be because you're selling something you're not supposed to, or you're using stock photos. So before you go to list anything on Poshmark, make sure that you are checking the guidelines of what you're allowed to list. Make sure that you are listing things that you are allowed to list, and you are not using copyrighted photos, and make sure that they meet all the guidelines, because if you don't meet the guidelines and Posh sees them, they will remove them, and you could risk your account losing all your listings or just one or two or anything. So just make sure that you're listing things that you're allowed to list. Make sure you check the rules, and it could be as simple as just checking to make sure, doing a quick Google search. I mean, for me, I've tried to sell a couple things sometimes, and I realized that I wasn't allowed to. Or same thing with like making sure that you're not selling things that are way overweight. You can't sell things on Poshmark that are over 10 pounds. That's just the given rule that they have. So make sure that if you have a bundle of things, it doesn't go over that threshold. And just make sure that your listings are what you're supposed to be selling on the platform and they won't get removed. Okay, so these next two are going to be repeats of things that I talk about so often. They are still best practices to be following in 2024. These are listing and relisting daily and sharing daily. So I won't spend too much time on this because I do talk about this all the time, but it's so important to be listing as many items as you can daily and relisting daily, and making sure that those numbers are consistent daily if you can. So for example, I in 2023 was listing 5 items each day and relisting 5 items each day. I think I'm going to up that to 10 relists and 10 lists each day for the year. But again, it's so important to be listing every single day. It's important to not be skipping days, and it's important to be consistent with how many items you are listing every day. And same thing with sharing. It's very important to be sharing. I just talked about this in the other day's video about how sharing is going nowhere. You still need to be sharing daily on Poshmark, and this is going to help you bring in those consistent sales to make sure that your items are being actively shared. So definitely keep sharing your closet and relisting and listing every single day, and that's going to make sure that you continue to have that success on Poshmark. And the final best practice that I'm going to talk about in this video is to just make sure that you're taking time to put good effort into your listings, whether that be in the photos, making sure that they're well lit, make sure that you white out those backgrounds, or at least make sure that they are a neutral background, make sure you're taking good photos of the item, and make sure that your descriptions, titles, and details are all very clear and descriptive. So many people will say to me, like, why am I not selling my listing? And then I'll look at it and there's the same title and the description, or there's no details, or the details are wrong, or different things like that. So it's so important to make sure that you take time ahead of time to put into your listings to make sure they're good. And this is gonna make you have so much more success without you even realizing it. It goes such a long way to just put in the effort ahead of time. It's going to save you time in the end from having to backtrack anyway. So it's just so much better to do it from the start. Don't be lazy when it comes to your listings, because that's really going to show when it comes to how many sales you're making. If you're lazy and you don't put in the time and effort into your listings, you're not going to sell that many listings. So definitely put in the time ahead of time, and that will really help you with a lot more success on the platform. So I hope this video was helpful for you and it taught you some best practices that you should follow on Poshmark in 2024. These are things that are really going to make a difference, and they may sound repetitive, they may sound very obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people are not doing these things and then wondering why they don't have success on the platform. So these are all things that, have continued to be reasons why you're going to have success on Poshmark, and things that are really going to help you bring in those sales. So hopefully this was helpful, and if you want to see a video of things that are really important to follow on Poshmark as well, just like the future of reselling on Poshmark in 2024, you can click right here. And if you want to see a video on new features that have been released recently on Poshmark, you can click right here. But until next time, I will see you then.